Hello, I'm Ignace Aleya from ToleratedCinematics.com, and today I will be showing you how to create this. Alright, that looks pretty cool. Today we are going to concentrate on the effect itself, and then tomorrow we're going to talk about how I've done the transition for the text with the glow on the edges of the text, and it looks pretty cool as well. So that will be for another tutorial. For right now, we'll do the effect itself, and yeah, open up After Effects and let's start creating. Alright, so here we are in Adobe After Effects. So I'll be creating this effect right here today, so let's get started. I will just put this in a new folder here. And actually, if you don't want to follow or you want to support the channel, you can actually buy this template on our website. A link will be in the description, and then you can just change the text and you would have your intro looking like this, and you can easily change the color. But okay, and that being said, let's get started. For those that do want to follow this tutorial, I will close all my windows here and I will create a new composition. And here I will just add circle effect, and I'm going to right click, and actually the composition settings should be square. So instead of a height of 1080p, I'm going to copy my width and I'm going to paste it in my height in a frame rate of 30, and then also here I'm going to change it to maybe something like 10 seconds because we are going to loop it anyway. There we go, click OK. And now we're actually going to recreate that circle effect. The way I've done this is create a new solid layer, and I'm going to rename this to just circle mask, and I'm going to make it comp size and click OK. And then we can add a circle ellipse tool here, double click on the ellipse tool, and then we're going to double click on the mask itself, scale it down while holding Ctrl and also Shift. So, and then you're going to get a nice scale here. We're going to scale it a little bit down so we are not going to touch the edges once we apply a effect to it. So that's looking pretty good. And also I'm going to change my mask to none here. I'm going to close my mask here so we don't see it on my screen and I can concentrate on the effect itself. And I'm going to add a Vegas effect. So I'm going to search it here in my effects and presets, Vegas. I'm going to apply that to my solid layer. And the image contours, we're going to change that to mask or path, and then we're going to use that mask. It's automatically selecting this. Segments, just one of these, and then I'm going to increase the width by like a lot, and I'm going to scale down my, I'm going to scale up my hardness to 1, so it's completely hard. That's not what she said. So I'm going to make the length also a little bit shorter here. Something like this. And actually I'm going to use my previous comp here just to look at what we have done actually. So I'm going to open that up and I'm going to open up the effect itself. So right here we can take a look at what I've done to stack it up. So right here you can see the first effect was that short effect that we are trying to recreate right now. So I'm going to close all of these down again, and just so we can look a little bit to try to get it as perfect as possible. So change the color to white and make it even shorter. There we go. So now what we can do is actually first I'm going to animate it. So we're going to click on stopwatch for rotation and then move ahead 10 frames well to the end of your composition. So it depends on whatever time you chose. I'm going to enter -1, so it's going to rotate it counterclockwise, and yeah, there we have a full rotation. So if we're going to preview this, it's just going to loop, and then we can use it actually to loop in our final project. So now we can duplicate this and maybe make it a little bit longer here, make it smaller. Also play with the end opacity maybe. There we go. Duplicate it again, and now we're going to make it longer, something like this here. and make it smaller as well. And actually for the second one, I'm going to bring down my hardness to 0. And also change the mode, so toggle the switches if you don't see that, to screen, so we can actually layer up all these effects here. And there we go. Alright, the second one, I'm going to make it longer. As you can see in the previous version, it's a little bit longer, and I'm going to increase my hardness just a bit. It's really playing around with all these things here. Okay, so we have our third one. We're going to duplicate it again, and now we're actually going to enable our mask again so we can see it. Double click on it and scale it down again with Ctrl and Alt. Well, it's actually Shift and Alt. Or it's Ctrl and Shift. Okay, so I keep getting these things mixed up because in Photoshop it's different than in After Effects. So there we go. We're going to adjust a little bit of these settings again. So now we can make it maybe a little bit thinner even. And again, I'm going to uncheck this so I can concentrate on my line itself. And this is really thin. And make it a little bit shorter. There we go. Duplicate it again, and now scale up the mask maybe. And maybe add a segment of 2. We're going to get something like this here. Make them a little shorter. Duplicate it again. Again, the mask tool. Double click on it. Make it a lot smaller. And maybe add something like 4 and do some random seeds. No, we have to check the random phase here, and that's going to random it a little bit better. Okay, so here we have them. I'm going to change it back to 3, and I'm going to make them a little bit longer and also a little thicker and softer. There we go. So now if we are going to preview this, let's see what we have. Okay, so that's pretty cool. For the second effect, I'm going to make the hardness even more, and the actual overall opacity, I'm going to make it a little bit less intense here. So you can also play with the actual opacity of every solid and see how that works to give it a little bit more of a ghost effect here. And apart from that, it just really depends on yourself. Just keep on stacking them to give it extra detail, and yeah, just do the same workflow as we have done for these layers here. So once you are fine or you're satisfied with whatever you created, we can continue with the tutorial. So let's create a new composition, rename this to main comp, and again also maybe change it to 20 seconds. And one thing I actually forgot to do is 10 seconds is way too slow, so we're going to hold all, we're going to select all these solids, press U on the keyboard, select the last keyframes here, we're going to drag it to somewhere around 2 seconds, then press N on the keyboard, right click, trim comp to work area, and that way it's going to work fine. So that's going to be a little bit faster, and you can speed it up as fast as you want, of course, but I find this working pretty great. Okay, so this is a little bit faster. That's great. Now we're going to create in our main comp a new solid layer, and I'm going to make this source. Okay, click on your ellipse tool here, and we're going to drag out while holding Ctrl and Shift to make a perfect sphere here. And I'm also going to change the layer solid settings to white. There we go. Click OK. Then I'm going to reveal all these settings here for the mask by clicking on this arrow. I'm going to create a keyframe for the mask expansion and the feather. So the feather can be 0 at the beginning, and the expansion can be until we don't see the circle anymore. And then like at 1 second, we can make it 0 and a lot of feather. There we go. Okay, so this is looking pretty nice. Then we're going to create a new composition again using just Full HD, and we're going to rename this to fractal noise. And if you know my tutorials, you know that I really like to use fractal noise, but it's a really powerful tool. So click OK, right click, new solid, and yeah, again, fractal noise. Now we're going to add the fractal noise to this layer. So effect, noise and grain, fractal noise here. We're going to change it to a dynamic progressive, and I'm going to add a little bit more contrast. Alt click on the evolution, on the stopwatch for the evolution, and enter time times something like maybe 250. So right here, time times 250, and click away, and that's going to animate our evolution. Duplicate our fractal noise here, and we're going to change it to a soft light, and then we're going to play around with the transform here. So scale it up a little bit, maybe add some more complexity and offset it just a bit in the offset turbulence here, so just to give it some variation, and a little bit more contrast, maybe a little bit less brightness, and duplicate it again. And now we can just play around until you're satisfied actually. So maybe make it a lot smaller and also darker or something like this here, and let's see what we have here. Okay, so for now we're going to keep it as it is, but you can just play around until you're satisfied. I'm going back to my main comp, and I'm going to use, well, go to the project manager and drag my fractal noise composition into that composition. I'm going to check it off so you can see it actually, and actually my main comp should also be full HD. So the composition settings, 1080 in the height, so full HD. Okay, so right here we have our circle or fractal noise. Uncheck the fractal noise and just concentrate on that circle. And now that I see my actual mask, I'm going to double click on the mask and make it a little bit smaller because it seems a little too big as we're working in a full HD comp here. Okay, go to the effects and presets and search for displacement map. Okay, displacement map, drag that onto our source, and actually we'll have to pre-compose this source because we have the mask applied to it. So layer pre-compose, move all the attributes, and then just light source, let's call it that, and then we're going to add that displacement map to that composition. Select for the layer map a fractal noise layer, which we can see right here, and then increase as needed, so whatever you want. And now you're going to see that it's also animating. Of course, it has to scale up first. I'm going to change my resolution to half so it's a little bit faster. And there we go. So let's preview this. We can see it has some animation. Then I'm also going to apply the turbulence displace to give a little bit more variation. And we're going to change the size to 50. And maybe the amount is 75, and hold Alt and click on the evolution time times 150. Maybe add a little bit more complexity. Okay, let's preview. And this is just something that you can experiment a little bit with, but it's just to get something in the center of our effect to animate a little bit. So I'm going to duplicate the fractal noise, and I'm going to make it visible now. And then also I'm going to duplicate the light source. I'm going to place this on top of my fractal layers, the fractal noise, okay? And then I'm going to click here on the track matte, and I'm going to check alpha matte. And now we're going to get some fractal noise detail on our emitter as well. So I'm going to press T on the keyboard to just lower the opacity just a bit so it's not all black. And now we have some detail there, so that's pretty cool. You can maybe try soft line. No, I'm going to keep it at multiply and just lower it just a little bit more. And now we have some detail in here, so that's pretty cool. And I'm going to, well, actually for the fractal noise, it can be 20 seconds. I'm going to open up my fractal noise, click on composition settings, and just make it as long as you need it to be for your main composition. So if we go back to the main comp, you can now make these longer. Okay, so now they covered the whole scene. So now we have our effect that is just our emitter. So I'm going to select all my layers here, layer pre-compose, and then light source or whatever you want to. Just trying to name everything that it's sometimes hard to give it a name. Okay, so we're going to scale this down here, and we're also going to toggle the switches and make this a 3D layer, and then just scale it down a little bit more. Right click, new, and add a camera as well. And a 35 camera is okay. Let's click OK. So now we have a 3D layer, and we can also import our circle effect here. So import that as well. And here we are going to right click, time, enable time remapping, and hold Alt, click on the stopwatch for the time remapping, click on the arrow and go to property and click on loop out. And then if we just click away, we can make this as long as we need it to be, and it's going to keep looping. So it's going to play and loop, but as we have done a perfect circle, it's going to just start again from 0. So that's perfect. And actually, if you want it to be completely perfect, you can go into the circle effect and just make sure that these keyframes are just out of the frame. So that way it's going to be not a perfect circle at the end, but then the next frame, which is actually the first frame, is going to have that exact same value. So that's an even better way to do that. Okay, so right here, let's see. In the circle, we can also make this a 3D layer and also make it a little bit smaller here and change the screen mode to, well, the mode to screen. Scale it down until you're satisfied. And now we're going to toggle the switches and duplicate it a few times. So duplicate it once, maybe rotate it a little bit like so. And then in the Z-axis rotation tool, you can get by clicking on the W key on your keyboard, and then you can just rotate it the way you want it to be. So maybe scale it like this here, duplicate it again, and just do a few of these. Try to give it some variation so it doesn't look too easy. And duplicate it once more. And maybe another one. And let's preview. Okay, so that's pretty cool. I'm going to add one more to fill up this gap here. So I'm going to rotate it in this way. And that's going to give some more depth. So if we preview this, now we have one right here, which is making it more like a sphere, and it just looks cool. Okay. So here again, you can do as much as you want to. Now, once we have done that, we are going to select everything, and we're going to pre-compose this as well. So layer, pre-compose, and we're going to make this emitter effect. Well, actually the source power, maybe, whatever. I'm not really creative today to come up with ideas for names. But that being said, click OK, and we're going to click on our source power. And right now, it's the moment to change your color depth, actually. So currently we have, well, you should have 8 bits per channel. We're going to change this to 32 and just click OK. That way you have more information to work with. And if you're going to apply an effect, stylize glow, for glow, it's really nice to work in a higher bits per channel. So we're going to lower our threshold here, and then I'm going to lower my intensity way down. So even if you're at 0, it doesn't really mean 0, because if we're going to apply it, well, check it on and off, you're going to see it's still giving something. Okay, but it can be a little bit more. Duplicate the glow effect, and now we're going to increase the radius a bit and also increase the intensity, and then duplicate it once more, increase the radius even more, and increase it a little bit more here. And now we can lower this one, maybe. Yes, okay. So we don't lose too much detail. Actually, we can leave the first glow. It doesn't really affect too much. or I'm actually going to keep it because I just want some glow on the very edges of this effect. So I'm going to keep it like this. Okay, so now we have the glow. We can also add a CC radial fast blur. Add that to the source and just make sure it's not too much, something like 10, and make it the brightest. Okay. Once you've done that, we can add a new adjustment layer, and we're going to rename this to grade. And also I'm going to import my previous fractal noise here, and I'm going to put that on top of my source power here, and I'm going to duplicate my source power as well. So duplicate that, put it on top of my fractal noise, toggle the switches, and again I'm going to click on my fractal noise layer and change the track matte to alpha matte. That way we're only going to affect well, that area, or click Luma Matte, it's going to work better. Okay, so click on Luma Matte, and then we're going to change it to maybe a classic color burn and lower the opacity so we get some detail in there. So you can see right here, this is looking a lot cooler. So for the grade, we're going to add another CC radial fast blur, and here we're going to also click on brightest, but this time I'm going to increase it like a little bit more, change it to a screen, and lower the opacity just a bit so we get some detail in there. So now we have something like this. Okay, click on a new solid layer and add a flare, flare. And here we're going to add a lens flare. So search for lens and generate a lens flare and change it to a 105 millimeter prime, and also you have to change the solid settings apparently to black so you can actually see it, and then change the mode to screen and put that flare in the center here. Alt click on the brightness for the flare, and here we're going to write another expression. So wiggle, open parentheses, 1 time a second, comma. We're going to change it 100, so close parentheses, and this is going to give some wiggle to our flare. I'm also going to lower the actual flare itself, so make it a lot smaller. And there we go. And change it maybe to 75, 70, okay. I'm going to add an effect called tint to that flare so it's black and white. And actually, I call this adjustment layer grade, but actually we're just going to keep it at radial blur. Add a new adjustment layer on top of everything, and this we're going to call grade, and put this on top of the flare as well. And here I'm going to go for an effect color correction curves, add a little bit of curves here for the contrast, and add a little bit of reds here in the highlights. Just make sure it doesn't get clipped here, so bring it as high as you can, and then go for the blue channel and lower this amount here so we get a nice golden color. Go to the green channel, and here we're going to add a S-curve. And that way we get that nice contrast, that rich color, and play a little bit more with the blue and with the red. Okay, I kind of like this grade here, so let's see what we get. It looks pretty cool. Now we can add another stylized glow here and just make it a little bit bigger here and lower the intensity and duplicate it and make it even bigger. Okay, so this looks stunning, really. I really love this effect. And you can see that the glow also gives a very rich color because we're working in a 32 bits per channel workspace, so looks really cool. Maybe we lost a little bit too much detail in the center, but yeah, you can fix that if you want to, but I kind of like it this time, so I'm going to keep it as it is. And there we have it. So now if you want to make it seem like it's exploding, you can just use the glow and play with the threshold, radius, and intensity to keyframe it from being whatever it is and then make it all white. So you can give a nice look to your transition using glow actually. And you can see how it builds up. It's really looking very cool here. Alright, so that's basically it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you liked it, give it a like. Also subscribe to the channel for more, and be sure to check out toleratedstore.com. We offer many cool things, so definitely check it out. A link will be in the description.